New Edition happened to be one of the main groups who showed you how bad the business is when it comes to bands and groups. They were a glowing representation of what could happen with mismanagement of funds and lack of business practices. Over the years, people wonder what happened to these bands. Like, what happened to these bands? And then you watch something like Unsung and you see all the tragedy and all the things that happen. You can like, wow, like they had timeless hits, timeless songs. Like, what happened to them? Did that really, they just really fell apart like that? It baffles you because that's something you couldn't fathom. You couldn't fathom that going down. You couldn't fathom that being a reality. And when it becomes a reality, now you're in a situation where you're looking at something, you're going, wow, I can't understand how this has happened. And this is like songs that are iconic. Like some of these artists, their songs play every year. And someone else has their masters, their royalties. They're not getting any kickback on the song whatsoever. And they created their song probably in their house, coming up with the music or the concept. And someone else is being paid for their hard work and effort while they're sitting at home wondering where it all went wrong. New Edition was a glowing example of that, as they've been in the business since they were kids, like the Jackson 5. They were the last modern band that started from childhood into adulthood. Most bands now, they start as kids, they disband as kids. Now, moving forward, New Edition's contract was so bad, they had to pay off their old managers, who had them in like a 15 album contract. They worked for gifts. New Edition made money on shows, but their show money was being dwindled out of them by the producers, the managers, and everyone else. They found a way to finagle the money out of them. They weren't producing any of their records, even though they were producing their own records. And going forward, Michael Bivins appeared to be a good businessman, but he ended up being a shrewd businessman himself and decided to do this act to his own artists. The same thing that was done to him, he was doing to Boys to Men, ABC, and all his other artists that he had. New Edition did a tour in which they got paid, I believe, 3 cents because they had took out basically all the money for taxes, and all they were left with was like 3 cents. It was a wake up call. I would say that was a wake up call. When you see something like 3 cents in your account, you're like, wow, 3 cents. The band had to divide like 3 cents. That lets you know it's time to disband. So the New Edition tragedy continued. They never got their money until they went and got their own separate deals. Ralph Tresvant had his own solo career, and his first album was very successful. Bell Biv DeVoe created their own thing after everybody was leaving and made a new hip hop swing type record and got some money. Then Bobby went solo and then imploded. Once he realized the deal he had and the way it was structured, he wasn't going to be getting paid. He had an album that sold almost 4 million copies. Don't Be Cruel album. And he's like, well, where's my money? I'm doing these shows and I'm not getting the money I'm supposed to get. His next album budget should have been at least $8 million to $10 million. And they weren't giving him that kind of rollout. So he got in a fight with the studios, and it took years before you saw Bobby Brown put out another album. As the studio went to shut Bobby down because he wouldn't go back to work. Johnny Gill had a successful career. All of them had to go out and get money elsewhere as individuals because being a New Edition wasn't feasible. There's no two ways to put it, you know. Normally a band has one singer who's like the main guy, and they split up, and the lead singer goes out and do his own thing. That's been the way the new modern thing worked with like Justin Timberlake and others. They basically have this band to highlight or assist the lead singer, but their interest is mainly into the lead singer. Ralph Tresvant was the one they had the interest in until he ran into another singer, Johnny Gill, who could sing in different sets. He was a very soulful singer, where Ralph has this falsetto that the older he got, that kind of style faded out. Now, Johnny and Ralph both own the name New Edition. So that's why they had to do the Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, and Mike tour and couldn't go under the banner of New Edition. So let this be known. Sean Puffy Combs paid them. The first time New Edition saw a real paycheck as a band, Sean Puffy Combs paid and had New Edition. When he revamped their careers and brought them back, and they didn't know how to act. They were like, "We're back, bigger than ever," and blew the money because at that point, New Edition was just so damaged that the new fame that they got just tore them apart. They instantly destroyed themselves. Too much individuality there. Everybody had their own thing going, so when they came back together, they were all individuals rather than being New Edition. And everybody had separate management, so the money was not handled right. One guy's firing his own managers and arguing with it's not like they had one manager anymore. So there was many managers. And the way they handled their money, the way they handled taxes, the way they handled payments on houses, it was terrible. But Puffy paid them. They made millions with Puffy, millions, and it was all gone. In a roughly about 2 years, New Edition, all of them were like borderline bankrupt. Michael Bivins had to release Boys to Men as he was working with Babyface and L.A. Reid at the time, before they had to split, and everything imploded. It was what it was at the time. Michael Bivins stayed on top through his royalties and things he had with Boys to Men. But they were the second New Edition to come along. And they're the epitome of what you would call a real band. That was a real group because that group actually could sing together. They actually did things where Michael Bivins was mostly rap. Ronnie was the dancer, rapper. Him and Mike Bivins would be out the group. Ricky was a singer, Ralph was a singer, Bobby was a singer. Mike and Ronnie, like they put Ronnie in the group, and he just became one of the guys. But they didn't even acquire a right. They signed a publishing away on like Candy Girl, all those songs that was making hits. They were getting no money from. All the songs they did as kids, gone. Um, they I don't know what's happening with the Heartbreak album. I think they might get a percentage off that, but all the older songs, if they get any royalties, it would only be as an artist, which would be very small. No producer credits, nothing. And that's why you hear their older music in movies and not none of their new stuff. It's terrible.